learning this beautiful new Grieg piece, which actually is written for orchestra and for piano. It's from his Lyric Pieces, Opus 54, and when I was in high school of performing arts in New York, we accompanied the dance department that had a spring concert, and they were dancing to the Lyric Pieces, the ballet department, and I was in the orchestra and the violin section. And so this brought back memories as I was perusing this album of all of the Lyric Pieces of Grieg. And he has such a wonderful autograph of harmony in his pieces. This particular one is very dark. It's dark because of a lot of chromatics, but he uses a lot of augmented seconds. The augmented second we usually hear in the harmonic minor as, say, A minor we would hear. Except what he does, and it's in G minor, is he doesn't use G harmonic minor. His basic opening theme is going from the first degree of G minor to the second degree to the half step third degree, and then he does an augmented second. So he starts with that descending augmented second folded in. And it's very beautiful, and that is picked up in a lot of the rest of it too, and it comes back at the end, and the left hand sort of picks things up, but it's a motif. Of course, things get developed, and there's a lot of improvisation you feel in it, or ad lib, and that's very much characteristic of late Romantic era. This is late Romantic. And so I'm just learning it, and what I do think about, and I tell students, is to get the kind of lyricism that you want in this very legato, very singable line. You want to make sure you have the hanging hands off the hanging arms, and some of the Russian teachers call it the weeping willow tree branches for the little students. They right away get the sense of the weeping willow tree. These are the branches. You can see these are the leaves at the end. But that's very important. You can feel the buoyancy of your arms. You want that all the time, and you particularly play this kind of music with the longer fingers too. And you can see me using an opening D, which gives that lyricism, the very avoidance of the pencil point sound, And so it's in 6/8, so it's felt in 2, or duple compound. You really feel a rocking motion in 6/8 of the first 3/8 notes would be one beat, and the second 3/8 notes would be the second beat, and you would lean toward the first 3. Now you don't always have 3/8 notes, but you lean toward the first beat, and you lift the second beat in 6/8. That is 6/8 time. That is pretty much very much legato and spun out. And so this is what happens. He opens up with this beautiful, as he calls it, cantabile melody. Comes in on an upbeat like this. Puts a little accent on that D. And then he does a little variation on the answer to that. You can hear, puts an extra note in of an upper neighbor. And then he goes to... some of the left hand. So what he did there was he basically stayed in the G minor. At the very end he ended up with a D major chord, which would be the dominant. Now on the left hand he's going to break a chord here, because I can't reach G, D, B flat. And if I did, I'd probably play the G, A. I wouldn't be able to get a clean G on the bottom. So I would break it. Or you could break it like this, or down to the G minor 5th. Of course, this is the first part of the measure. 1, lead, 2, rest. And he does that again after he skips a measure of rest. He does it again. 1 And then he continues with a dotted half note, which would be the whole measure of 2, 1, 2. And here's that half step down in the bass. And he rolls that, resolves it into what would be E flat chord. And E flat chord happens to be the 6th chord of G minor. And then he's going finally to the 5 chord, as I said before. And then fade off. It's always good to do separate hands. I'm a separate hands player. When I learn separate hands. I want to know what each line is doing. And I also want to know the harmonic rhythm. What are the harmonies? It's important because the harmonies teach you about resolving certain harmonies or unexpected deceptive cadences, things like that, or half-step chromaticism between particular chords, as he does here, mostly in the bass, where he gets this. It's too beautiful. Resolve it down. And fall back. And that's the way to practice really slowly. So if you put all of it together that I just did now, you would have this. And I'm way in back tempo because I believe that one should practice in back tempo. Even if it's a piece that won't go quickly and it will be slow, it's still good to get a good sense of control by playing slowly and still phrase nicely and shape nicely and leverage your weight, because you always want to have variations in your weight so that you have an interesting sculpted line. It doesn't get flat lined out. So he starts again with puts a little accent there, as I said before. And he answers that. So beautiful. 6 chord and 5. Now he's going to the next part. Repeats it. Did a little softer that time. Again. Section, and the middle section is poco mosso, which means it moves forward and it moves more, and it's going to get a little quicker, but I'm not going to get that much quicker in my early practicing phase here. I'm more interested in the voicing, the balance, the harmonies, things like that. So what's happening here, it's like a cello line. He's bringing out the bass line, and we might examine the bass line separately and see what he's doing. Doing that, I would say that that's an important line. I could hear the cello playing that, and then upstairs more harmonic against that cello line, because this is moving slower upstairs. So you could say I'm more interested in this line that's really got more motion down, and it's quicker rhythm too, quicker notes. So you would bring out the left hand here as you're practicing. This is where this really gets quite interesting. Suddenly he's going to have this little interlude of very kind of unmeasured spree of notes where he does this in the right hand. And actually I've heard some recording that the player plays it completely dry. I don't think I would dry that out. If you dry it out, you get this. It doesn't comport with the feeling of the romantic lyrical moisture of this piece. It doesn't make sense. So for me, I would do. When he does this in E major, you've gotten to E major now. Left hand sequence. Now he goes to E major and he's interesting to look at these keys. So when you have these sequences where he has these sprees of the next key he's going to go to is F sharp major with those fast notes, then G sharp major, and then B flat major. So he's like WC, he's done whole tones. He's done whole tones, as you can see. He did this. So that would be important to know, because it grounds you in what the composer's actually doing harmonically. And as you're going through some of these sprees of these groupings of fours within, 6/8, where you're ultimately going. So it's very important. Because in a way, he's negating tonality when he goes this way. He's now asserting tonality here. And here he's asserting it to, you can hear the triad of E major. And then he kind of negates it in a way when he does it. And now you're clearly in F sharp major, and then he G sharp major. Lots of half steps here. Now we can hear clearly the keys we're in. C flat major, A flat major. We're going to discuss what that sounds like if we do all those harmonies consecutively. So beautiful what he does. It's absolutely gorgeous. So when he got to that B flat, we know he came out of the whole tone. But when he got finally to the B flat, he's then going to go to the E flat minor, which is its minor 4 chord, subdominant. And now he's moving kind of by half steps to C flat major, to A flat major. I mean, they're neighbor chords. And then F sharp minor, D major. I mean, that's very important to do because it frames what the composer's doing harmonically, and also helps orients you to the piece where you are. It's good for memorization too. So I'm only in my beginning learning on this, but this is what I do. This is what I try to analyze as I'm playing, and I try to preserve, some degree of musicality where I want to hear what I'm doing. Some sense of lyricism, even if I'm not really there yet, in terms of knowing the piece. This is the softest. I mean, his harmonies are so amazing in this piece. And then what he has here is he has some syncopation. 1, 2, D, T, ya, T, ya. Now he has some counterpoint. He brings back the beginning with overlapping voices, and he adds a voice. So I'm going to go slowly. He does this, and here's the overlap. I'm doing it very cautiously because I'm still learning. And here's, again, overlapping counterpoint. I'm just trying to see what he's doing. Now we're back home to what he did before. I'm going to go to the second ending. The second ending is coming. He goes to a D, and then he trickles down. And that's a G7 chord. G7, we think it's C major. Now we have this, by the way, these ninths. That's also a hallmark. The ninths, you'll notice that I had a lot of ninths in the left hand. Now this is forte. I'm going to do that again because I have to let go of, my hands aren't big enough. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to rely on the pedal to blur it a little. Again, those ninths. Sequences. It's really very exotic. is his final ninth here, and it's rolled. 5, 5, 5, 5, 4, 4, 3, D. Now here's a tritone. D. Each one is less. And then there's this beautiful haunting silence, and we bring back the beginning, a piece of the beginning. So gorgeous where he goes. So I'm really at an early learning stage, but in this early learning I get pretty deeply involved with how the piece is put together. Now at that very end, I'm going to look at that again and how I think what I'll do is, you can blur that a little because you want to hold that chord down that you can't otherwise hold. So this piece, I think it's quite amazing what he does. It's just brilliant. And I think for me it's the harmonies that just are so haunting.